Well, MLB free agency has officially started, and the New York Mets have officially started as anticipated, but New York Mets have gotten their first big move done, extending closer Edwin Diaz to a 5-year deal, $102 million, with a team option for 6th year. And when Diaz has also included is a $12 million signing bonus. So New York Mets made it clear what their priority is. We knew that they had a few big free agents that were available. Jacob deGrom, Edwin Diaz, one of them, Brandon Nimmo, maybe even priority in their war room, in all their meetings. They said the number one guy we have got to bring back, the first thing we have got to get done is bring back Edwin Diaz. So this is unprecedented what the New York Mets have done here. 5-year deals to relievers, you never see it. You never suggest it. I mean, it's just a bad business practice. It's not something most teams do. But when you are the become the exception, and when you look at what happened last year, Edwin Diaz was the best reliever in all of baseball. So New York Mets felt that it's okay to give him this 5-year deal going over $100 million. So Edwin Diaz has now set the market. He has set the record for the most money getting made by a reliever, and it's absolutely. And the Mets, like, a lot of people want this guy DFA'd in 2019. We wanted to get rid of him, and now the Mets are like, we have got to keep this guy and go absolutely out of our way, give him an insane amount of money to keep him. So Andrew, as the GM guy, what are your thoughts on this deal for Diaz and for the reliever market, and then just for the Mets in general?
Well, this is something. I think that's the best way to put it. Holy hell. 5-year deal to a reliever. That's very crazy, but there is an opt-out after the 3rd year, which again, the best way you can hope is if he continues to pitch the way he did last year for the next 3 seasons, and then maybe he opts out of that deal after the 3rd season. And then you're just looking at 3 years at $60 million, which I'm a little more happy with. Obviously, there's a 6th year. At least that 6th option is a team option. So they have the control. So if he does, revert back to the form that we hope we never see again, there is a way out. Long time from now, but you do have an opt-out. It's your control for the 6th option. The term is the big thing. The money, like I said in my video, I think I've said in multiple videos during streams and videos, he was going to get $20 million AAV. It was just the term was going to be the big deciding factor, and he got the $20 million AAV. He got 5 years, 5 guaranteed years. I don't love it, but he is also younger, so you're not paying it kind of like how Craig Kimbrell, I think he's 28, 29, so you're only paying him to his age 34 season, which isn't terrible. He's 28, so you're paying him to age 33. So a lot of the best relievers in the game are age 33. So, it's better to do this now to give a 28-year-old reliever a 5-year deal compared to a 33-year-old reliever. So there is upside that hopefully the first 3 years he's still elite. He could be dominant throughout the 5 years. Like, this could be, he could continue to be one of the best relievers in the game, and we're not batting an eye at this type of deal. It is scary. It's the biggest number ever given to a reliever. He topped Hendricks. He topped Chapman. It's a risk, but that's a risk for every kind of pitcher, especially, he gets injured. You're wasting a year, getting him $20 million. That's the risk with any type of pitcher. But reliever market now, I mean, there really isn't any other stud closers out there. There's some guys who have closer experience, but obviously Diaz was the cream of the crop of the reliever market. Now it sets a precedent. What does a Robert Suarez go for? Because he had a great year, not as a closer, but he was one of the best relievers and setup guys. So what is he at now? 12 to 14? Now I want to see what the ricochet is for the other upper echelon relievers. Not as close, but some with, obviously, you've got guys like Kenley, you've got Taylor Rogers who have closer experience. Now I want to see what the Diaz ricochet contract. His contract ricochets down to those other guys, but on the day the Braves, we were like, the Braves always made the first move of the offseason, trading for Sam Hilliard. The Mets go, hold my damn beer. Diaz is back, and now hopefully their next pivot point is Brandon Nimmo. Those are the top 2 guys on their priorities to bring back. Check one off the books, one more to go. Now, hopefully, that all speed ahead to Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah, and I think think that's very interesting that the Mets, they are just going to give $100 million to reliever before we decide to do anything else. Thank you very much, Mets fan. Exclamation mark with a few more exclamation marks, MB. We really appreciate it. Sign Nemo and DeForm or DeGrom this week. We'll take up either one. Sonia Settleman, a lefty and more arms. I've come around on the whole lefty thing, honestly, when you look at what the Astros just did. Just get a bunch of good. If you bring in a lefty who is not that good and he could just get teed off by Yordan Alvarez, it's like just go to somebody who's good. You know, I think that now with this 3-batter minimum rule and just the way baseball is now, like just have 8 lefties in there, great. But it just shouldn't be like, oh, well, he's left-handed, so get this guy when there's a right-hander who's just a better overall pitcher than him. I want that versatility. You know, I want guys that go multiple innings, runners on base, whatever, could face righties and lefties. I just think they tried it with Jose Alvarado multiple times in the World Series. It was not working, you know, because there are just some left-handed hitters, whether it's Yordan, Soto, Bryce, so take your pick, Freddie Freeman. Like, there are just some lefties who are so good, it doesn't matter what kind of pitcher you throw up against them. So the Mets getting Edwin Diaz, I just find that interesting because there's a lot of work to be done. You know, they still have to bring back Brandon Nimmo. They still have to bring back DeGrom, and they haven't even made an upgrade yet. So, I mean, the pipe burner or Correa, one of those guys, make a big trade for somebody, Shohei Ohtani, I don't know. Like, those are all the big-time dreams, but it's like if you're already committing $100 million to a reliever, what does that mean the eventual payroll is going to be when it's all said and done? You know, because you've already just committed this $20 million. So we've talked about how since the Mets do have a lot of expiring free agents, the books are pretty clean for the most part, particularly long term. So do you think this really impacts what the Mets could do as far as upgrades along with retaining, or this is kind of just a separate thing?
Again, I think this is, if you didn't think the Mets were going over that 4th luxury tax, shame on you, because if they want to actually improve the roster, not just bring back the guys they had last year, they were going to have to blow past that. And I've said that they're going to have a $350 million payroll this year. And I'm not surprised. This is the first domino. Hell, $20 million. Diaz, yeah, you're going to bring back Nemo's probably going to be close to that $20 million as well. If they're bringing Jacob deGrom back, that's probably going to be a $40 million. And there's $100 million just right there, just to bringing guys back. So they're going to blow past that threshold, probably at 350, maybe even $370 million payroll. Just to, again, you have to bring your guys back before you're even extending and bringing in new talent. So the payroll is going to be massive, and that's again what the benefit of having Cohen is, that you can just, you know, piss money away on $100 million on a reliever, on a closer. You know, that's not really, you know, most teams don't do that. I thought the Phillies would do it, but the Mets, we did it. The Phillies outsmarted the Mets. That's a first, but. I wanted to kind of go back to the point of view with the lefty. I do somewhat agree. I mean, again, just bring in the best arms. And this is the first thing, and this is what Mets fan and I brought up in a video when we were rebuilding the bullpen. Frank, you were there for the bullpen. Yeah, we were there for the bullpen video, bringing it back. Now with Diaz set, you need your setup men now. And yes, do I care if it's a lefty-righty? But now you have your top ace in the bullpen set. Now you need to build the bridge. Obviously, Ottavino, Lugo, May, those guys need to be replaced. So now, obviously, the big dominoes fallen with Diaz. Now, how do they set this up? Are they going to go out and get, you know, Taylor Rogers and the lefty Chafin? Obviously, now Chafin's available. Do they go pivot Chafin? They were interested in Chafin last year. Are they? Yes, they're just going to go. They lose 10 picks, whatever their draft pick is. They got to move down 10 slots. That's all it is. So it's nothing crazy. You just, you know, you got to move down to the draft, which, you know. They had a great draft last year, so I don't really care. Hopefully now we're at the point of like where the Dodgers, they're always picking at the bottom, and they always find talent. Hopefully the Mets can eventually start to get like that, where it doesn't matter where they pick. They're just drafting the best player at the spot and developing them well. But yeah, now, so back to the bullpen's point. You have the top. You have your ninth inning lockdown. You need to lock down the 8th and the 7th. So now we'll see what the new bridge is going to be. There's, again, like I've said, there's some quality names out there to go get. There's maybe some trade partners you maybe go out and do, which again – we could actually do that too. We got two news today, bringing two moves already today, just to bring back the option. We'll go by. Maybe we'll get that at the end of the video because it's really less important than Edwin is. So again, I'm happy. Obviously, keeping the talent, the contract. Again, we'll see. But I'm looking at hopefully this is being a 3-year, $60 million deal, and he just continues to pitch well, and he opts after that 3rd year, and you don't got to worry about those back years of Edwin Diaz. Which again, there's even a chance that he could be great all 5 years, because again, you're not paying a guy who's 32 and getting him at age 39. You're paying a 28-year-old in the last year of the deal. He's going to be 33. Some of the best, Liam Hendricks and guys older than that, and still some of the best relievers in the game. So again, the relievers are very finicky, but I hope now you started to see in the last couple of years he's been comfortable in New York and he's been great. Hopefully he could be that the next, at minimum 3 years, maybe even 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I think one of the other big things is that he's done it in New York. I mean, that's something that you always have the question mark, because if you're going to let Edwin Diaz walk and you're going to pick up one of these other relievers, it's like, okay, well, have any of these guys done it in Mets uniform? No. And it was like you said, we look at the pitchers out there. Kenley Jansen comes to mind. David Robertson. There are some pretty good pitchers out there, but they're 33, they're 38. But a guy that's 28, I mean, that's the kind of guy you want to have, because you're not going to have him long term. It's like, I don't know how many more good years Kenley Jansen has left in him. David Robertson, he probably has one more good year out of him. So I think the Mets saying, you know what? Because the thing is that we talked about with making the bullpen, if you're going to sign a bunch of one-year deals, then you're going to say, okay, if we don't sign Diaz, who are we going to sign to make our closer this year? You sign him to a one-year deal. Then next year you're saying, okay, who are we going to sign to be our closer? And it's just this thing that you're constantly doing every single year and just saying, okay, is this guy good? You're going to have some good pitchers, you're going to have bad pitchers. That's how bullpen works. But if you think you have at least that one guarantee in the back in the ninth inning, sometimes eighth and ninth, or just eighth if it's the heart of the order, which we saw the Mets do with Diaz this year, it worked out pretty well. At least you have that sorted out. My one gripe about this is that if I'm saying, okay, I have to pick a priority from all these players, I'm choosing the reliever. The one thing I didn't like about that, for this particular team in that San Diego series, you saw a game where the Mets scored 0 runs, and you scored a game where the Mets scored 1 runs. Edwin Diaz is not going to help you with that. So I think that there are some bigger flaws on this team than just the bullpen. They have 4 starting pitching slots that they got to address. I think they still need some upgrades in the lineup. Whether is Alvarez going to be the everyday catcher and be the guy we expect him to be? Because we're not running back another year of McCann and Nito. I mean, are you going to rely on Escobar to give you a good year at third base? So it's just a lot of question marks. And then you also have to be extending Brandon Nimmo. How is Starling Marte's health going to hold up? Do they want to upgrade from Cannon? Cannon was good, but you could do better. There's just a lot of questions that the guys are like, who the heck is going to be the DH? Like, we can't have Darren Ruff and all these other guys when we're facing the Dodgers with all their lefties. So there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, but they at least got one addressed out of the gate. Said, okay, we got this done, and then we can do the next thing. We appreciate it, Wardy. Thank you very much. And shout out to Wardy. Obviously, he's doing great stuff. So yeah. The trumpets cursed us. I don't know. I think there's more than that was going on. I mean, we'll see. I mean, listen, we all know he had that bad year in 2019. Mm-hmm. Ever since then, he's been really good. So, yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes.
Again, and is he going to have another sub 1.4 ERA season? Yeah, probably not. But again, just give me a top 5 reliever every year. And he's giving you that, and he has the stuff. It doesn't, he's 35-year-old reliever, and you give him a 5-year deal. Like, he's in his prime, so he's finally comfortable. I'm okay. To the point of when Frank bringing up the priorities, I do agree. Probably Nimmo should have been number 1, but they've made it clear their 1A and 1B was Nimmo and Diaz. Please, Jock to New York, please, and blow the rest of the pen up with nukes. Yes, but free agency hasn't even started. Like there's so many questions. Wait, what?
No, I was going to say, I'm curious to see how they're going to, like, if they're going to keep that blueprint of, like, a lot of table setters, leadoff hitters, OBP guys, and, with that shift being gone, are they going to be like, okay, we saw all these teams in the playoffs that had a lot of power, a lot of home runs, or were the Mets going to try to emulate an offense like that, or stick with the guys that they have that are mostly just a bunch of singles and not being very aggressive on the bases, not going first to third, not stealing bases, and run all that stuff? Because if you're going to be a singles team, it'd be nice to have a little bit of speed so you can get multiple bases that just one at a time. It's very hard when you're facing elite pitching to string together 3 to 4 straight hits just to score a single run. One swing of the bat, that's 3 runs. So that's the way I look at it. Trust me, I remember I was one of the guys like, man, this is not working out. He is not the guy in Seattle, but I mean.
And so, back. I wanted to go back to my point.
On the Mets, really. And what I find very interesting, too, is that don't forget, this is like Brody's big move. You know what I mean? Like, he traded away, Kelenic, brought in Robbie and all that stuff. And the fact that the front office changed and it's still like Edwin Diaz is our top priority or one of our top priorities is pretty crazy to think about all these years later. So, I mean, I guess there's going to be like that one thing that Brody has attached to him, because the thing is that, like, if the Mets can fix their offense and they are scoring some runs, what a luxury it is to have Edwin Diaz the back end of the bullpen to protect those leads. But now it's just a matter of getting the lead, and then you can kind of take care of the rest. So that's why I want to see them. I really would like to see them address the offense.
Yeah. So again, kind of to that point is the Mets have been I love we've yelled at the Mets. It seems like every year they're always sleeping. They're always wait to the last minute. They got ahead. Free agency hasn't even started yet, and they've already spent $100 million. Like, and this is Sandy Olson being gone. Epler getting ahead of it and said, you know what, boom, we're going to spend money before even free agency has officially started, and they've already locked up Diaz. Now I think they're going to pivot to Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is going to wait until, over Thursday. Boris is going to want him to hit the free agent market. But now I could see them easily pivoting to him and then get him done. Yes, the offense needs to be addressed, and there's ways they can address it. But if you look at the holes compared to the offense to the pitching, you kind of know what the lineup's going to look like. You have really one hole in center field. You have a guy there that can play. Yes, is he great? And DH. But they do technically still have internal option with Ruff and Ventos.
Pretty much catcher as well. I mean, we're assuming that Alvarez is going to step in and.
Hey, we got a Gold Glover there. We got a Gold Glover chilling there or nominate.
We'll see.
Yeah. So again, I like it. They're aggressive. Again, nobody else is making moves. We'll see. I think they're going to prioritize pitching because there's way more holes internally than there is externally. With the offense they can fix it internally to an extent. Where pitching, you have no options internally. So they have to go out and spend money. Getting Diaz, getting that biggest chip of the bullpen done. We'll see what they do with Jacob deGrom. I still believe he's gone, but we'll see. Maybe he's brought back. I think he's still gone, but we'll see. But again, there's for the Mets, we'd like them to see offensive upgrades because they need power, but they still had one of the best offenses last year. Even though again they flawed, yes, but they have their core built. The pitching, you've got one starting pitcher and you got now two relievers and Dayoka and now Diaz. Drew Smith can go jump off a cliff. With the offense, you have more stability with the lineup. You would like to fix a little couple. Obviously, center field is being the biggest hole. DH, yes, you would love an upgrade. Is a luxury to an extent because you have some internal option now, which we'd love them to go out and add offensively. But all pitching wise, there's a bunch of empty names. So the Mets, I expect them to be focused on pitching, and then once some of those pitching holes are filled, then they pivot to offense. I think they're going to be way more aggressive pitching market than they will be in the offensive market. So it's the first domino. I could be wrong. I could see Epler going nuts. With no Sandy here now, maybe just Epler just decides to go nuts and spend Steve Cohen's money like it's nothing. Maybe, but we don't know. But if this is a sign of something, hell, free agency hasn't even started. There's already $100 million checks being written. This could be crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm really wondering about because since Chris Bassett, that's another piece of news where he declined his player option. So the Mets currently have 4 open spots in the starting rotation. So all 4 of those need to be addressed. I don't think it should be the same 4 guys that were here prior. If you want to bring back DeGrom, let's see what they have 7 years, something like that. That's pretty tough to put on the palette. But do you want to bring back Bassett? Maybe, depends on price. I personally want to bring back Carrasco. I probably don't even want to bring back Taijuan Walker either. So they have a lot of question marks to answer there. Like you said, there's a hole in center field. But the way I look at it is that, okay, you gave the $100 million Diaz. That's done. Can't change it. The contract is signed. If you are going to go $50 million on DeGrom, my only question is, does that prevent them from making those upgrades that they still need? Because I don't want to commit so much money just to bring back the same exact team. And you may go crazy. I wonder if, the Mets, they spent a good amount of money this past year getting Scherzer and some of these guys, Starling Marte, and they couldn't even get out of the wild card round. So does Steve Cohen say, I got to spend even more? So we philosophy going to be. I think the fact that they are extending a reliever to $100 million as soon as free agency starts, that should give you a pretty good idea of what they're going to do because they know they still have a bunch of holes and they still made this signing first. So I do think that we are going to see quite a bit of money spent this offseason. Yeah, for me with McGill, I don't see him as a reliever. I think the way I do it is I would like to, like we said, sign 4 more starting pitchers, and then you could have McGill in AAA as a starting pitcher and work his arm as a starter. If he gets back to where he was at the beginning of the season and he's throwing hard and he's pitching really well, then you could call him up and maybe see what he can do. But I think right now, let's kind of work him back to where he was. I don't want to have the guarantee that, okay, or he's going to be in my bullpen. I would like to have the young guy in the minor league just as a backup, or, in case there are any injuries or things like that, then you could have McGill take over in the rotation. So that's what I would personally do.
I think I've made this clear in my video. And now we'll do a dream offseason again once the non-tendered contracts are done. I would be very shocked if Tyler McGill is on the New York Mets on any roster at opening day. If they want, obviously, if let's say DeGrom leaves, let's say Bassett leaves, Walker Carrasco, it would be very hard to see the Mets running in, just keeping Peterson and McGill to add rotation pieces because they're going to have to make trades externally, free agency trade. I would be very shocked if Tyler McGill is a New York Met next year. And if they just run it back and they bring DeGrom back and they bring everybody back, I think it's possible. If they lose a couple of rotation pieces, I would be very shocked if they make any trades and McGill's name is not involved in anything. Because, like we've said, the Mets farm system is starting to get better, but there really isn't a lot of trade chips. McGill would be a very valuable trade chip to go out and trade for. The names are really not out there, but maybe a Shane Bieber, maybe, Corbin Burns, just throw a couple of superstar names out there. I'll deep dive into actual, maybe realistic guys. But, if you want to go and add that, if DeGrom leaves and you want to put that number 2 ace, I would be very shocked if McGill were to survive those trade talks. So, again, I like McGill. I see him more as a reliever because he'd be more valuable if you gave him a full offseason, be a reliever. But the fact that the Mets don't have any starting pitching prospect depth really should shift him to be a starter. I think he could be more valuable as a reliever. But, again, this farm system's pitching is very young. Unlike the bats, where the bats are starting to come, the pitchers are going to take longer because they are young. They're longer because they're in the lower levels. But again, I would be very shocked if they went out and made a big blockbuster trade for a starter and Tyler McGill and or David Peterson's name would not be in that trade.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because when you look at the farm system, it's very top heavy, and it's like you're not going to trade Alvarez again. I don't think you want to trade Brett Beatty because what would be your long-term future at third base? So really, you're looking at Mauricio. And, I mean, Alex Ramirez, I think, is too young to move.
And you do not trade him after you trade BCA. Nope.
Matt Allen is hurt. We don't know what he is anymore. So, other than that, it's like there aren't any other pitching prospects. Those are their trade pieces. And then from their major league roster, those are the only young, controllable guys that have any kind of value would be McGill and Peterson. Everybody else, they're veterans, or they're too important to your team to trade because we still don't have Jeff McGill's replacement because you're just creating another hole. Like, you don't fix a problem with making another problem. I mean, I don't think that's the best way to do business. So we'll see how they address this rotation. How many? I mean, maybe it's something where they keep 2 of their guys that were from last year's rotation and add 2 more. I mean, that's something that maybe they looked at. Like, you keep either DeGrom and Bassett or DeGrom and Carrasco, and you get 2 more starting pitchers, and then you see what added in the offseason. I mean, that's probably how they're going to have to do the rotation. All right, does anyone else have any other questions or comments, whether it's about Diaz, Nimmo, DeGrom, Bassett?
Do you want to talk about Bassett and then Chungus before we head out of here? Because obviously that is brand new news that did break today.
Yeah, it did. So, I mean, he declined his $19 million player option. I saw that now the Mets can qualify offer him. So that if somebody does assign Chris Bassett, at least the Mets get some kind of compensation for him, which makes sense because you were offering him $19 million anyway. So you might as well at least have some kind of consolation in case he does leave. For me with Bassett, he is a very tough one to figure out because for the most part, he was really good during the regular season. I mean, he had so many good starts that it's not so much it was a good start, but it was he went 7 innings. He went 8 innings. And over the course of 162, that's so big because that rests your guys like Edwin Diaz, Ottavino, whoever else. And it just makes winning games on a day-to-day basis is a lot easier. But as the season closed out in these really important games, the Atlanta series, the playoffs, Bassett wasn't very good. So, I mean, he was good for most part of the season, but he didn't show up in the big moments. So if there is a team that overpays him, I'm not topping that. I think he's another guy that he has that cutoff. I'm looking at maybe a 2 to 3 year range, probably around that $17 to $19 million range. I'm not going more than that. I mean, his personality, he's kind of a weird guy in some regards, because he talks about New York like it's a really big challenge, whatever. It's like, well, is it a big? He didn't show up in the big moments, so I'm not quite sure what they're going to do there. Again, it all depends on what happens with DeGrom. I think that's what's going to decide what happens with Bassett, because now it's like, if you don't get DeGrom, it's like, okay, well, you still need a 1 and then Bassett. I mean, you could slide Max Scherzer to your ace, but I don't want to go backwards. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that makes this team any better. I feel like you still have to go ace, then Scherzer, and then whether it's somebody and then Bassett as your 4 or 5. That would be pretty interesting. But again, it's going to cost a lot, because we know how the starting pitcher market works. Starting pitchers cost a lot of money. So that's why Chris Bassett felt confident that he could decline that $19 million. But again, it's like, there's so many things that we need to address. I can't be putting all my chips into retaining him.
Yeah. And part of me, you think about it, damn, what if we would have had signed Kevin Gausman as well instead of gotten Bassett, because you would have had some term with Gausman. You wouldn't have had to worry, oh, you're trading for a 1-year rental. You know, Gausman would have been in the rotation for, 5 years or however long he signed with Toronto with. But again, obviously, Gausman had a better season than Bassett. But again, like you said, Bassett did have a good season, didn't end well. But I don't think the Mets can go back-to-back years of just giving away their innings eater. You know, obviously, the year before that, some certain Twitter troll, which gave us a ton of innings. We lost him. Brought in Chris Bassett to do his role, and he did pretty well. Like you said, he didn't have great starts, but he gave you 7 innings every time. He gave you 8 innings on a good start. Could the Mets be willing to go back-to-back years giving away their innings eater? Like the guaranteed, hey, this guy's going to give you 200 innings. And he was durable. He made, 35 starts or whatever he made. He took the ball every 5th day minus that one COVID start. But he gave you the innings. Can the Mets afford to do that back-to-back years? That's the question. Again, I would love him to be the 4. I would love them to sign a pitcher, and then trade for a cost-controllable one. Maybe that's the way. Maybe you sign a Rodon or sign a DeGrom or Rodon, and then pivot to making a trade for, like I said, a Bieber or someone less of the Bieber kind of caliber guy with a little more term, so you don't have the same situation next year. Well, you bring in 3 guys, but there's 3 guys all free agents next year. I think the 5th starter you can give a 1-year deal to. I think that would be fine. But again, finding some quality 4 starters, pitching is expensive. Again, like I said, I said I was going to say in a future video, which we had to scrap now, but Yusei Kikuchi got $14 million over 4 years. Like Chris Bassett's going to get $19 million over 3 years at minimum. He's going to take that $19 million option and probably get 3 years out of it. And he's also going to be 33. So do you want to pay a Chris Bassett? Yes, he probably is the type of pitcher who does age well because he doesn't use velocity, but it is something to think about. Again, we're asking all these questions. Free agency hasn't even started. And the Mets have got their 1 deal done. 1 question mark done. There's a ton to do. Maybe we'll do a video on the channel like we did the trade deadline, like checklist for the offseason. Maybe that's an upcoming Mets Weekly. Well, maybe we'll do that for you guys. 1 check mark is done. This doesn't start until Thursday. So maybe they can get somebody else done, maybe, because, they could sign their internal guys. But nothing starts till Thursday, and the Mets have already spent $100 million. If that's a good sign, I think we're going to get most of the questions answered. We just got to wait. We got a whole 4 months for this to happen. This is not going to all happen this week. Like, we were even shocked we got this. So be happy we got this done. We got a ton of questions that will get answered. We got 4 months to do it. Relax. It's going to be, I think, Cohen will not let you down. So we got 1 done. Now let's see where they pivot.
Yep. And that's exactly right, because there is a lot that needs to be done, but that's why there's going to be plenty of videos on the Mets Weekly channel. I'm hoping sometime next week to get a video on my channel, my own that I have circled and I'm looking at to try to address some of these needs that the New York Mets currently have. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming to you guys. And for Trevor Williams, I wouldn't go 10 to 15 million. I do want to keep him, but I think 10 to 15 for a guy who is probably going to be a long reliever, again, we talked about, don't give multi-year contracts to relievers. Holmes would be a little bit too much for Trevor Williams, in my opinion. I mean, I would like to keep him, but I'm hoping to stay like in the $5 to $7 million range.
Yeah, again, if it's $10 million over 2 years, cool. $10 million for one season, yeah, I'll pass on that and try to find another version.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
all right. If nobody else has any other questions, we will end it here. So Mets, one big move done already. $100 million spent. I mean, it happened a long time. So at least we have a closer. At least that's done. So again, one down, many more to go. Make sure you tune in to Mets Weekly. You're going to EmpireSportsMedia.com for all your New York sports needs. Checking out Andrew's channel, my channel. Everything is in the description. So until next one, be safe, everyone. Let's go.